So I'm going to be playing some highlights of the interview that Tucker Carlson had with Joe Rogan. And obviously, I encourage all of you to check out the full interview on Joe Rogan's podcast, so that way you could hear the full interview. But what was really interesting was the conversation that both of them were engaging in regards towards censorship and why our lawmakers are the way they are. Now, I have to be very careful when I word some things in this article. In fact, I probably cannot even pull this up because the word of a controversial element involving those who are not of age will be brought up. Now, the video, I think that'll be just fine to play, but reading it or myself saying it will be another thing altogether. I know, don't you gotta love censorship? So, U.S. lawmakers scared of being framed for controversial material because they fear that the intelligence agency would try and accuse them or plant evidence of underage material, controversial material, to be in their possession. So members of Congress consistently vote in favor of mass surveillance programs because they're terrified that intelligence agencies will frame them for being individuals who commit a crime on their computers if they speak up. American Journal's Tucker Carlson has said. Carlson appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast on Friday, hours before the U.S. Senate voted to renew Section 702 of the 1978 Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, also known as FISA. It was basically created to allow intelligence agencies such as the FBI and the CIA to do surveillance on us and communications on foreigners, of course. However, Section 702 allows these agencies to access data indirectly collected from millions of Americans without a surprise, you guessed it, a warrant. According to Carlson, a number of lawmakers actually oppose this renewal but did not admit it publicly. They're afraid of the agencies, he stated. That's not compatible with democracy. He goes on to say, it's playing out in front of them, in front of everyone, and no one cares. And no one does anything about it, Carlson continued. I think the reason is because they're threatened. And if you look at the committee chairman who allowed this crap to happen year after year, I know them. They have all the things to hide. I know that for a fact. Apart from the supposed threat from obviously intelligence agencies, Carlson also claimed it's very common lawmakers to have a drinking problem or a weird sex life. Look, these politicians, look at them. And if you're a diehard Democrat voter or a diehard Republican voter, for once, take off your rose-colored version of the world, those rose-colored glasses, so you don't see this beautiful vision of the world. Look at your politicians. Look at your U.S. senators and House representatives. Look at who they really are. Do they look like well-together, common people? They're not. They got a lot of problems. They got a lot of issues. They're not human. I mean, hell, look at the politicians who are in their 80s going on to their 90s. You got some people in power that have no business to be there, who lack any kind of maturity whatsoever, and the only reason why they're there is to enrich themselves. Plus, look at their families. Honestly, if you had relatives who were in their 80s and 90s acting all senile in Congress, you would think their loved ones would say something. But they don't, because they're just as psychotic as their, family members in Congress. So let's go ahead and first pull up this video here, just so we can all see it. This is the video in question that really shook things up and kind of upset the vote blue no matter who crowd.
Members of Congress are terrified of the intel agencies. I'm not guessing at that. They've told me that, including people on the intel committee, including people who run the intel committee, the people whose job it is to oversee and keep in line these enormous, can't even know, they're black budgets. They're the parents, the agencies are the children. They're afraid of the agencies. That's not compatible with democracy. Democracy is a really simple system, even representative democracy like ours. The people rule. They do so through elections. They express their preference through voting. They send their people to the capital city to run the government on their behalf, who are not accountable to anyone making the biggest decisions. You don't have a democracy. You have something else, another system. I would call it a tyranny or whatever you want to call it. It's not a democracy. So that's like super obvious. It's playing out in front of everyone and no one cares and no one does anything about it. And I think the reason is because they're threatened.
Now, looking at our intelligence agencies, You have to believe that that is very true. Even Chucky Boy Schumer, at the height of the Trump presidency, on MSNBC, or BSDNC as we like to call it, made this comment saying you do not want to make an enemy out of the intelligence agencies here in America. And this was in regards towards Trump upsetting the FBI and the CIA and all the adjacent agencies that are dedicated to spying on us. I mean, quote unquote, protecting us. That's right. It shouldn't surprise any of us that many of these politicians are blackmailed or threatened by these intel agencies in order for them, to be more precise, to continue on with their daily operations. No one has ever opposed them. No one has ever stepped up to them. It's almost like we're seeing history repeat itself, just like we saw in ancient Rome with the Praetorian Guard until Constantine the Great dealt with them. But nonetheless, the FBI and CIA are controlling our politicians. They're dictating, helping to dictate many policies that will protect them from oversight and regulation. I know that a lot of us are still coming to terms with the fact that, yes, we're being spied in on. Hi, Bill. Hi, Bob. Those are my NSA, FBI handlers. They're really good guys once you get to know them. They know everything about me, and they probably know everything about you, too.
And if you look at the committee chairmen who allow this shit to happen year after year, they're all, and I don't know, people say, oh, they're compromised or being blackmailed or whatever. I don't have evidence of that, but I know them, and they all have things to hide. I know that for a fact. And so it's not a stretch of imagination to imagine that, you know, some committee chairman who's allowing warrantless spying, knowing fully or hiding the truth about UAPs, ignoring the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. Like, why are they doing that? It's not impossible to imagine that some guy with a drinking problem or a weird sex life, and that's very common up there.
Behold, the Titans, the watchful eagles on the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, you know them, you love them, the United States Congress. 10 out of 10, those people are weird. They're not these honorable, know-it-all individuals. Makes me call into question all of them. And yes, I do mean all of them. All of them. Okay? Everyone. Just like that scene from Matilda. Everyone? Yeah, all the Congress people. I call into question those people. They're not normal.
That's why they're doing it. Because they don't want to be exposed. I don't have evidence of that. I don't have proof of that.
Right.
But that's not a crazy thing to assume that could be happening. And I said to somebody, a very powerful person, the other day in a conversation in my kitchen, an elected official holds a really senior position, a very famous person. I was going crazy. And about the warrantless spying and about the funding for these. Said to the guy who's in one of the legislative bodies, I got so mad my dogs were afraid. They're like, well, why are you yelling? Because I don't yell at home. But I was like, all these people are controlled. They're all, you know, got weird sex lives and all these things are hiding and they're being blackmailed by the intel agencies. And he said, and I'm quoting, I know.
No, it's not hard. Listen, hold on. I might have my disagreements with Tucker Carlson here and there. I might, right? But let's have democracy in the chat. Let's have and really, really, folks, I want you to focus in on this one because this is about our Congress, our quote unquote representative democracy of our fair republic. These individuals who sit in the Capitol building. Let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1 for Kit. Yes, Congress has problems, but this is being blown out of proportion. How dare you assume that Congress is all messed up? Okay, does it have problems? Yes, but Tucker Carlson is exaggerating, and so are you. You awful, awful man. Type 2. Kit, we know Congress has problems. In fact, we're only scratching the surface. These people should be in jail, all of them, for many, many crimes. I wonder how many 2s will get in the chat. I wonder. I mean, come on. Congress can't be that bad. I mean, let's just say we just turn a blind eye and just let those guys and gals be. Say it with me, folks. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, that's right, everything, because we have been giving these politicians a blind eye. We have been trained by our media to just assume that everything is all right, all okay. That's not the case at all. And finally, people are starting to waken up, as they should, as should all of you. And it is your social responsibility, especially after watching this show, this clip, to educate yourselves, look at different perspectives and points of view, and yes, even crossing that Rubicon of talking to people who might think differently than you. Really, when push comes to shove, I think a vast majority of Americans are understanding just how sick Congress is and just how angry all of us are at our government for not doing its job, and that is looking out for the people.
So at this point, we're just sort of,
sorry about that. Let me rewind that.
He said, and I'm quoting, I know. It was like, okay, so at this point, we're just sort of admitting that's real. Like, why do we allow that to continue?
Now, I want to pull up this other article here. It's from Real Clear Politics. Carlson, corporate media's lies have become insultingly unsophisticated. Look, I'm not a fan of corporate media. I think it's bullshit. But this video here kind of goes into detail about overall what is wrong with corporate media. So let's play it.
What's interesting is that there are people saying that now. And I think that's a relatively new thing in terms of mainstream media. And I consider what you do on X mainstream media. I mean, this is what we're on right now is essentially mainstream media. It used to be, you could call it, there's corporate controlled media.
I agree.
And that used to be mainstream media. Mainstream media used to be CNN. It's not really anymore. The mainstream media is what, in terms of the volume consumed, more people are consuming things on anything else. They're consuming information through the internet, through YouTube, for good or for bad, whether it's correct or incorrect. They're consuming information in different forms now than ever before.
And there's a reason why it happened. I mean, before the first adpocalypse, before things started really getting crazy, let's say before 2015, all right, there was a reason why people were flocking to the internet, why people were abandoning corporate media, because corporate media was, dare I say it, maybe on its last legs. They were done for, and they knew it. The institution of corporate media knew it, and social media still being, I guess, somewhat in its infancy before it became the powerhouse that it is right now, because there was a time before social media became the end-all be-all thing. Yes, it was around, but let's just say in this day and age, it has been turned up to 11. It pales. What we saw in 2015 pales in comparison to what we have now. This is not open for a debate or discussion. It is the truth. People left corporate media because we could see that we were being lied to. The news was stale and boring. And there was only one way in which corporate media could remain relevant, and that was bullying its way onto social media. Then, of course, comes Donald Trump, and that thing caught on like wildfire. Everyone posting their opinions on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. And it became our daily consumption. We became closer and closer to it, to where now most of us cannot even separate ourselves from our phones. It takes a lot of courage to break away from it and touch grass or smoke it, whatever which way you want. But now, as we see how powerful the media is, what was once deemed independent or the Wild West now is, and it can be argued, mainstream media, or what we want to perceive it as mainstream media. And that's why I do encourage all of you, especially after the show, to do your own research and see different perspectives. Just don't trust one commentator, one channel to do all the thinking for you. Don't do that. Never be hypnotized. That's how corporate media really hypnotized all of us. In this day and age of so much information happening at a second, do your own research. That is important.
So more people are saying what you're saying than have ever said it before. And when people lie and when people bullshit and gaslight, it's more offensive now than it's ever been before, because there's so much access to truth that it's just, you could see it now. If you're paying attention, if you're not a boomer who only reads the newspaper, you pay attention and you see it and you go, this is horse shit.
But it's like, I guess what bothers me is that the lies aren't sophisticated.
No.
I mean, I look back over my now sort of long life, and I'm recognizing all the times that I was lied to, but, I didn't know I was being lied to. They kind of pulled it off.
Mm-hmm.
There's something incredibly insulting and demeaning to tell me a lie when I know it's a lie,
Yeah.
and I know it's a lie. We both know it's a lie, but you're demanding that I pretend to believe it.
Right.
What you're really saying is, I have no respect for you. You're like my dog.
Right.
You're a slave. Like, I'm demanding that you participate in my lie.
Right.
The lack of stealth, really, I'm not explaining it very well, but that really bothers me.
Now, I want to stop here for a second and bring up this point, especially now that I'm 39, going on to 40 next year. But in my long life, and I think all of you can relate to this as well, we could see when we were lied to. I mean, how can we not forget weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? How can we forget all the other times we've been lied to about whatever kind of war that we were going to engage in, be it under a Democrat president or a Republican president? We see through the lies, and we saw how sophisticated corporate media was. And it was sophisticated because they pulled this off for decades. And it can be argued that it started under Ronnie the Boy Reagan, all the way up until now, the influence of corporate media having control over our lives, us constantly being hypnotized and accepting the rules of the establishment. And the reason why things are so bad is because we gave our silent, obedient consent, and because the media helped us or pushed us to that narrative. Now, thanks to the power of the internet, people are more aware. But right now, our fight to break free from the establishment system is that much more difficult, because there are laws, rules now that were implemented by Congress decades ago in order to keep us from communicating with each other or speaking out or challenging the system, which is why we have to do the most arduous task, and that is get every single state to become a citizen ballot initiative state. We have to take power back. And the federal government, I understand some people still believe in electoral politics, so be it. But it has to come down to the states. And this is where we can use our power as sovereign citizens. Citizen ballot initiatives. And speaking of spying, hey, let's talk about the time when Trump was being spied in on. Laughs jokes and a swell good time.
When did you start having this opinion that they were spiritual and that they've always been here? Like when did
Apologies. This has to deal with aliens too.
this?
Well, I didn't know anything about the topic until 2017. And
Was that after the New York Times piece?
No, it was before. It was before. And the things that I saw, I mean, I was and am still a very conventional person. I mean, I'm 54. I grew up in this country in California, which was like every assumption about America I bought completely, just completely. And I thought that everyone who questioned those assumptions was bad. I just bought into the system completely without even thinking about it. And I imagined that I was like some kind of free thinker and, I'm going against the grain, but like my core assumptions were the assumptions fed to me by the culture and the government. And I didn't even realize it. But anyway, I'd never really thought about UFOs at all. And I'd been in journalism since I was a kid. So of course I'd run into a lot of people who had crazy views on a lot of different topics, UFO. And, like every whack job in the world you run into when you're covering stuff.
Fluoride,
right? I just brushed with non-fluoride toothpaste this morning.
Yeah, me too.
Exactly. But probably unlike you, I didn't. Come on. 9/11, shut up.
Yeah.
UFOs, you're fucking crazy. You know what I mean? I just
right.
I had this reflexive, I'm ashamed of it. I'm not bragging about it, but it was 2017, and really it was the Trump campaign. Though I've always liked Trump because he's like hilarious and charming and all that, but I wasn't like a Trumper or anything. But it was watching that campaign, and particularly his claim that they were spying on him, and I was like, really? The intel services and federal law enforcement, FBI, do not spy on presidential campaigns. Like, that's so out of the realm. That's so crazy. Like, that could never happen because, of course, there's no democracy in a system like that. And fundamentally, we're a democracy, an imperfect one. It kind of lumbers along, but like, it's not fake. And then that turned out to be true. And I knew it was true. And
you know what? Tucker, you could thank people like Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate for kind of open your eyes just about how crazy, Glenn Greenwald too, just how crazy the system is. See, it's not that they changed his mind. They brought up some interesting points in which caused him to look into different things. Like, because look, every day I do this show, I always read and watch different articles and videos that would challenge my perspective and point of view. And I at least want to do a well-rounded show. Yes, I have my biases as well, but it's important for us to really question everything and understand when we're being lied to and when we should break away and break ourselves away from the propaganda. That's how you have an informed populace. And that's what the media, or at least journalism, should do. And that is inform all of you to be empowered, to be aware who is abusing power, who is corrupt, so that our system can hold them accountable for the damages that they are doing to the people. That's my idealism. Controversial statement. Hey, media that actually tells you the truth. Wouldn't that be a sight to see?
That just blew my mind. So I began a process still ongoing of reassessing a lot of other things. Like, okay, well, if that was not true, what else is not true? And what else that they told me was a conspiracy theory might actually have some basis in fact. And then someone from, a DOD employee reached out to me and said, actually, there's a ton of evidence that this UFO thing is real. And really? And so I started doing segments on it when I worked at the TV channel. And there was like a lot of...
Notice he called Fox News TV channel. That's kind of funny when you really think about it. It is actually kind of funny. It is quite hilarious. So, yes. I worked at the TV channel. But also, hey, folks, who remembers when Congress actually went before the world and they actually held committees about UFOs and aliens? I remember that. See, sooner or later, like our government's just going to say, okay, yeah, Area 51, there are aliens in the bunker. Watch, like they're going to just go out there and just say it in public, and then people will be shocked about it for a little bit, talk about it, and then forget about it. See, now if anything like this happened in the 90s, and for those who grew up, especially when I was a kid in the 90s, if the government came out talking about aliens, everyone would have lost their mind. Everyone would have been like, whoa! Now it's like, whatever. Man, I got bills to pay. I don't give a crap. Are these aliens going to be paying taxes? We should build a wall around Earth and have the Martians pay for it.
Mockery, but I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to do this. And then, of course, this, as you know better than anybody, you start talking about something, then people reach out to you, and some of them are deranged, but some of them aren't at all. So I just started getting a lot of information from people and meeting with people, mostly in private, come to my house, let's talk. And I decided on the basis of what they told that actually this is really a very heavy duty question. Actually, it's not the little green men question. It's like a much bigger question. And it's really bad. It's really dark. And then I stopped. Then I was like, I don't want to know anymore.
Yeah. The truth is out there. And then finally, I found this part of the interview interesting, where Tucker Carlson says dropping the atomic bomb on Japan was evil. And I visited Hiroshima way back in the day in 2020. I know, just going back in the day in 2020, right? But folks, if you ever have the opportunity to visit Hiroshima or Nagasaki, please visit the peace museums. It will change you. It will impact you. And I actually did a Patreon video a long time ago of my coverage, or at least walking inside the Peace Museum. And it will change you. And you'll realize about what kind of crime happened there. It should never have happened. And I want to play this video because it's not talked about. And it is interesting that Tucker Carlson did bring this up. And I just want to play this as the final video here.
Well, you could say the same about the atomic bomb, right?
Yes, you could.
And you could say that we have to develop it like Oppenheimer felt before the Nazis did.
I love that. How'd that work? How'd that work?
Well,
I love, by the way, that people on my side, I'll just admit it, on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, well, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like,
again, the Peace Museum will scar you. And it's something I encourage all of you to visit. It is something you have to see. It will stay with you forever. There's one artifact that still stays with me to this day, and that is the ink bottles, these clear glass bottles that were fused together, and they look like a honeycomb. And underneath it, there's writing that says, "How hot did it have to be for this to form?" It's completely unnatural and frightening to look at. And there's other pictures and photographs there that will stay with you as well.
Like it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard call for you. It's not a hard call for me. So with that in mind, like, why would you want nuclear weapons? It's like just a mindless, childish sort of intellectual exercise to justify, like, oh no, it's really. How about like spending all of your effort to prevent this from happening? Would you kill baby Hitler? Famously,
Right.
So I don't know why we're sitting back and allowing this to happen if we really believe it will extinguish the human race or enslave the human race. Like,
Yeah.
how can that be good?
Now, I want to give the final word to a couple of people. Shout out to Metal Music. Thank you so much for the super chat. Tucker being on the right side of history regarding the atomic bombings makes my heart sing. Thank you so much for that. And then also shout out to Roger Meadows, and this in regards to the first video about politicians being blackmailed. $2 on Rockfin. Kit, the politicians are bought, blackmailed, willing participants, or some or all of the above. We must save them from themselves, and the only way to do this, we must save them from themselves, and the only way to do this is to run citizen ballot initiatives, amendments, not law, to empower workers in business to own and run companies, supply chains, production, distribution, exchange, and resources. Get state lawmakers, non-citizen ballot initiative states to propose amendments to voters to make you a citizen ballot initiative state. And that's how we get back our democracy. That's how we get back our power. That's how we build strong, independent media. That's how we actually speak truth to power. And there's a lot more in that interview between Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, but people are waking up to the fact that we are being controlled by our media, that our politicians don't represent us. Our politicians are clearly sick individuals or sociopaths that are leading us to World War III. And by the way, they actually passed a budget. What? Yeah, billions upon billions of dollars for war. But as for you, the American people, you don't get a gosh darn thing. What do you think this is, America? See, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, they're having this conversation, and I think it's important for all of you to hear it out and listen to it. But it's another thing altogether for us to take action in our own right. How we get our power back is through citizen ballot initiatives, and that needs to start happening for all the states. Get our power back, because these politicians, some are being blackmailed, some are willing participants, some don't give a damn at all, period, because they're just there to enrich themselves. Everybody's talking about it. It's time for us to walk out of our safe spaces and actually take the initiative, the battle initiative, to fight for that better future.